Let's jump right into this explainer, shall we? Today, we're tracing a truly incredible, inspiring narrative drawn directly from our source material. It's all about how seemingly tiny everyday connections can just ripple out over the decades to create massive platforms for hope and healing. We're taking a deep dive into faith, lifelong friendships, and honestly, the completely unexpected paths our lives can take when we're brought together.
I want you to think about that famous game, 6 Degrees of Separation. You know the concept, right? The idea that we're all just six or even fewer social connections away from literally anyone else on the planet. Keep that in the back of your mind, because you never truly know who you're going to influence or how your lives might interconnect way down the line to build something so much bigger than yourselves.
Now, our source text frames this whole idea of human connection so beautifully. It doesn't view friendships as just accidents of geography or random timing. No, it sees them as literal threads woven together with a divine purpose. It describes this whole thing as a wonderful tapestry that has been and is still being woven by the Spirit of God. Isn't that just a fantastic way to picture it?
So let's rewind a bit. Back in the 1980s, there was this youth group at Christian Fellowship Church, led by a guy named Pastor Bob Herndon. And a couple of specific names from that group are absolutely central to our story. First up, Renee Miller, who would later meet and marry Rick Driscoll. And second, Thomas King, who would go on to marry his wife Linda. Now, you might be wondering, why do these couples matter? Well, decades later, Renee and Rick would actually go on to form the Crossroads Radio 2.0 ministry, while Thomas and Linda would build this really amazing, thriving online community called One Groovy Planet. The really crucial takeaway here is the massive, long-term impact of a mentor's guidance. The source material points out that we could honestly all take a page from leaders like Pastor Hendren and just sow good seed into people's lives. I mean, he was simply planting seeds of faith and support in his 80s youth group. He couldn't have possibly known exactly how those seeds were going to blossom into these expansive media ministries literal decades into the future. It's wild to think about. Fast forward a few decades after those initial seeds were planted, and we finally start to see the harvest. This all kicks off in a back corner office at the Crossroads Church in Braggadocio, Missouri. And man, the evolution of Crossroads Radio 2.0 was rapid. It launched in December 2020, playing Christian contemporary music 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. But then, only a week later, the Brother Rick Show makes its big debut. Skip ahead another 6 months, and Broken hits the airwaves. In practically no time at all, the station transformed into this incredibly dynamic hub for original, life-changing content, running strong all the way until the summer of 2024.
Let's look at the emotional contrast between the station's two core programs because it's super interesting. On one hand, you have the Brother Rick Show. This was a highly creative, live talk show just packed with testimonies and words of hope, and it had this really unique blend of Christian music and carefully selected secular music. Very uplifting, very broad appeal. But then on the other hand, you have Broken, which took a totally different approach. It featured raw, completely unfiltered stories of living life in addiction, and set that against cutting-edge music from a huge variety of genres. It's a fascinating look at how one single radio station used two totally different formats to cast this massive net of support.
We really need to highlight how Broken, specifically, functioned here. It offered real hope, encouragement, and a genuine way out of addiction by surrendering to Jesus Christ and reaching out for help. For people controlled by drugs and alcohol, this show was a literal lifeline. The station wasn't just piping in background music, it was jumping right into the trenches of real-world struggles. It showed the true, life-saving depth of this entire radio ministry.
As happens with most things, seasons change, and both the Brother Rick Show and Broken actually wrapped up their runs in the summer of 2024. This shift happened as a brand new morning drive-to-work show came on board to take over the programming. But even though those two foundational shows came to a close, the impact of their core message undeniably remained. The foundation was already set.
So, remember Thomas and Linda King from that 1980s youth group we talked about earlier? Well, today their online community, One Groovy Planet, is proud to share and promote the work and message being broadcast by Crossroads Radio 2.0. It's just a beautiful display of lifelong connection. They are out there actively uplifting the radio ministry of their old youth group friends, Rick and Renee. Those threads that were woven way back in the 80s are still holding incredibly strong today, continuing to support one another across totally different platforms. It really all comes right back to the ultimate anchor for this explainer. Just sow good seed into people's lives. It's such a great reminder of the profound butterfly effect that simple acts of faith and friendship can have. Think about it. A pastor running a small youth group decades ago couldn't have possibly known he was laying the groundwork for a radio station that would literally help addicts, or an online community that would later amplify that exact same message of hope. As we wrap up this history of interconnected lives, I want to leave you with this question. Who might you influence today, and what good seed are you planting right now? Because honestly, you never know how one small act of mentorship or support might just ripple out and totally change the world. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and I really hope it inspires you to look at the tapestry of your own community in a completely new light.